presents Rankpocalypse. Can SEO survive without ranking? So just a few housekeeping notes to get started here. Our goal for today's webinar is to be an interactive discussion. So if you have any questions, please submit them through the GoToWebinar question thing on the right side of the screen, and we'll answer them in the last 15 minutes of the webinar. Don't worry about taking notes. We're recording the webinar, and we'll send it out to you guys so you can go through it at your convenience. If you want to live tweet or follow along as we're live tweeting, feel free to use #highlights. And if you have any questions after today that we don't answer during the webinar, feel free to reach out at contact@heilmangroup.com. So just how to use the control panel on GoToWebinar on the right side. If you have any questions or technical issues, feel free to raise your hand and someone from our team will reach out to you. And then just ask questions through the question text box there on the right. Send them in and we'll answer them at the end. So I'd like to introduce you to our presenters today. Caitlin Baker is a digital marketing associate here at Highland Group, and Michelle Law is our senior demand generation analyst.
Thank you, Scott. This is Michelle, and Caitlin will be introduced in a few slides. Here on this slide, you can see our agenda for the webinar today. We're covering a variety of topics from the current state of SEO, including some specific examples of what's happening, or examples of why we believe we are currently in a Rankpocalypse. Based on that, we're gonna share with you some ways to change the conversation or the direction of your SEO program based on what we're seeing, as well as, of course, provide you with some actionable takeaways to implement within your program. Lastly, as Scott mentioned, we're gonna follow up and answer any questions you may have submitted throughout the presentation. So what is search engine optimization, or SEO? It is the practice of increasing the quality and quantity of traffic to your website from organic search results. As you can see in this pie chart below, there are many factors that go into Google's algorithm or other search engine algorithms. These are just a few of the factors that have the highest correlation. Really, there are hundreds of factors that are constantly changing. But taking a look at the highest correlated factors from one of the industry leaders, Moz, within this pie chart, you can pull out two of the biggest factors. Those are links and keywords. And typically, one of the first things people think of when they think of SEO are keywords. And today, we're here to change the way that you think of keywords, particularly and specifically the way you think about keyword rankings. So where is SEO now? You may have heard that SEO is dead, but if SEO is dead, you wouldn't be here right now. And while SEO is constantly changing, there are two truths that we see consistently. The first is that it'll always be important for your website, association, or organization to appear in the search results. And second is that SEO is constantly going to be changing, and the factors playing into it are always going to be changing. So based on that, our bottom line today is to talk to you about how we have to shift away from both traditional tactics and metrics, specifically diving into and addressing the use of keyword rankings as one of your core primary KPIs or measurement metrics. So that leads us into why we do believe right now we are in an era called Rankpocalypse. And in this next section, we're going to go ahead and identify the signals that are telling us why we believe that we're in this current era.
Yeah, so I'm Caitlin. Like Michelle said, I was introduced a few slides later, but so a couple of the reasons that we think we're in this Rankpocalypse, or the end of keyword rankings as we know it, are in our mind due to these six features. So search engines are using more signals than ever to determine results, to basically personalize and cater to the searcher. We're now searching the way we talk with the introduction of AI and in-home devices like Alexa and Google Home, as well as people using voice search on their mobile devices. Search results are becoming more and more personalized. 93% of Google's results are not 10 blue links. So there's a lot more to a search engine results page now than just those 10 organic links that we initially saw back when SEO kind of started. Websites can rank in the #1 position and still not get any relevant traffic. Again, due to these new SERP features, a lot of times information is showing up right at the top of the page and people don't have to click any further. And then finally, keyword rankings really aren't accurately recorded in tracking tools. So while it's a great directional tool, keyword rankings are really hard to kind of nail down and find out exactly where you are because of, reason 1 through 5. So we're going to go into more detail about each one of these items that I just read through. Firstly, the evolution of SEO and search engines and search engine algorithms. So search engines are using more signals than ever to determine results. We know back from when SEO first started, people used to do keyword stuffing. So you were being, you were getting better placement based on how many times a keyword showed up in your text or on your web page. And, the search engines realized people were creating spammy sites. Just putting the keywords in as many times didn't give the best results to a searcher. So from there, they developed an algorithm that awarded you for how many links you have on your site or pointing to your site. But then we got to the issue of link farms. So then we started seeing spammy sites that were just a bunch of links pointing to somewhere or pointing back to them, which again wasn't great for the searcher. Next, the algorithm started awarding sites that helped with intent and their content was relevant to what the intent of the searcher was, and that's definitely obviously still super relevant today. And then as search engine results pages continue to evolve, we see new SERP elements added almost weekly, daily, the answer boxes, the carousels, video results. And that brings us all the way to today. The most important thing for Google, Bing, Yahoo, or any other search site is giving a searcher a return on their investment. So someone searching something is getting the best answer for the question or the query they're making. And basically everything that evolved into today's ROI kind of mindset of the search engines are, keywords, links, intent, content, elements. They all are compounding and build on each other. So keywords affect the ROI, links reflect the ROI, etc. So it's important that we build on the basics to create the best ROI for a searcher. Secondly, we search the way we talk. I think everybody has seen the Google commercials where someone can mumble something. They have the minions talking to Google Home, and Google can still understand what they're asking and give a proper result. That's totally the way we're moving. So Google used to deconstruct queries into fundamental keywords and serve results based on exact match to that keyword. Now Google uses more of the intent and context to serve results. So the queries are becoming longer, more specific, less sterile, and more conversational. So Google's taking that into account when they're showing search results. The specific keywords you're looking for are important, but also the entire context that they're placed within on your web page. And that helps Google determine whether or not a page is more or less relevant to the specific query. So you can see in the pie chart provided by Ahrefs, they did a study on long tail keyword length distribution. You can see queries now contain, the majority now contain 5 or more words. People are being more specific and they're searching the way they talk because you're a little bit more specific and more conversational as you talk as well. Third, search results are becoming more and more personalized. So you can see on the right-hand side, we have 2 screenshots. These are actually screenshots of web pages, or SERPs that Michelle and I received, searching the exact same thing, sitting next to each other in our desk at Heilman. So you can see, even though we search the exact same thing based on what Google or Yahoo or any search engine knows about me, my page is going to be different than somebody else's. So you can see Michelle's on the left there has 2 ads. I have no ads. She has different map results, and I have a lot more organic results than she does. And there's a lot of reasons why the SERP looks different person to person, but these 7 reasons are the most likely. So the type of device you're on, your previous search history, whether or not you're logged into a Google, Yahoo, or Bing account, your location, what browser you're using, the number of ads that show up for you, and then the type of search you're doing. So product first, just standard question. These can all change the look of a SERP.
The next reason is that 93% of Google results are no longer just your standard blue links. And when we say the blue links, we mean the organic result where you see the headline with the clickable link, the URL of the website, and about 2 or 3 lines of description text underneath it. Instead, what we're seeing is like the example of the screenshot on the left, where those green dots are identifying different types of SERP features. Google alone has 16 different types of these features. So really what we need to focus on is the fact that these features are not going away. It's definitely better to get ahead rather than behind. So figuring out how you can optimize not only your content to appear for those traditional results, but also for these special SERP features. Later on, we are going to dig into and give specific examples of how you can influence those results, but that's in the second half of our presentation. And another note is the screenshot that you're seeing with Rankpocalypse at the top is our webinar takeaway. So if you stick around to the end of the presentation, there will be a bit.ly link to this download. And if you have to log out early, we're also going to follow up in our email with a link to this asset as well.
Yeah, so the asset kind of breaks down the different SERP elements for Google, and then on the second page, which you don't see here, breaks down what it is and how you can affect it.
Mm-hmm. And the second half of this concept is it's really just kind of thinking outside the box. So how can you influence those results that are not your standard traditional blue link? But also, what about the other searches that aren't happening within Google or in Google itself as a traditional search? If you look at the pie chart on the right, you can see the distribution of US searches across the 10 most major web properties. So of course, the majority, about 60%, is Google traditional search. That's not surprising. But then if you look closely behind it is Google image search, YouTube, Yahoo, Bing. So while Google might be the most competitive area, don't limit yourself just to that. Start thinking about the other arenas and areas where you can win, where your competition might be a little bit lower. Next, as Caitlin mentioned earlier, Google and other search engines are beginning to borrow, quote unquote, content from your website and serve up that content right within the results page. So they no longer have to go through and click to your website to retain and gather that information. Really what this means is most likely at some point you're going to end up receiving less traffic because they can gather that information right there. But the visitors that do come through your site, they're going to be more engaged, more likely to convert, and already be prefaced to your brand or be familiar with it. The important thing here is to work on making your content engaging so that they do want to click through, as well as including some call to actions. And one more kind of bonus point is that recently Google itself has expanded the meta description character length. So now it can expand up to 275 characters, and that's showing up in more than half the search results page. So this is just another area where you really got to think about how can you serve up the right content that's interesting and both engaging. So not only will people want to read the content there, but also continue to engage with your content and click through to your site. So summing all these concepts into one whole statement, really keyword rankings based on all these factors aren't being accurately recorded in tracking tools. So that's why we're here today. We want to challenge you, think outside the norm, because really SEO isn't dead, but keyword rankings as the traditional metric that we see today are dying.
So now that we've kind of walked you through why we're in this Rankpocalypse, we definitely know that you're probably getting a lot of pushback on, you know, why aren't we ranking for keywords? Why am I showing up here and not here? Those types of questions. So we're going to kind of walk through we have 6 different types of pushback that we think that you could possibly get, and then kind of how to address it. So these are kind of the 6 main concerns that we hear a lot. Number one, we can't measure how much profit is coming from organic search. Is it working? So we definitely hear that one a lot. Organic search is a slow process, and it's sometimes hard to see the finish line when you first get started. We aren't seeing any results after 3 months of work, but our paid search campaigns drive positive ROI. Should we stop SEO and only focus on PPC? I only care about ranking for marketing, or honestly insert any keyword there. A lot of times businesses or companies just want to rank for that one big word that they know is a big one for their business. 4, how will I know how the organic searches are driving traffic to my site if we aren't measuring keyword ranking? 5, is one link on a third-party site really going to make a difference to my organic performance? And then finally, I am showing up on page 1 of Google, but I'm not seeing any new and additional traffic. So I'm sure you guys have heard these questions. We hear them all the time, and we're going to kind of take you through these with some actionable steps you can take to combat them. Great. So as Caitlin said, if any of those questions on that previous slide resonate with you, you hear it from one of your direct reports, or you're asking those questions yourself, the next section is really for you to dig in and take notes on. So we're going to cover everything from how to adjust your metrics and the thought process that goes around your analytics, to how to incorporate those changes that are happening into your keyword research and content, and how you can be reflective of these changes that are happening, as well as follow up with some specific additional activities you can do to push your results beyond keyword-centric tactics. And then, of course, no good webinar is complete without a bonus. So we have a fun bonus slide for you at the end. So this slide here is addressing how to measure how much profit is coming from organic search. And what we recommend to do here is, rather than just focusing on the movement of your keywords, is rather to go ahead and measure your organic KPIs, or most important metrics, alongside incoming organic traffic. So we know that keyword rankings are not always going to translate into organic traffic. There may be no search volume behind them, or they may be just appearing on the front page of Google and people aren't clicking through. But even further than that, we know organic traffic doesn't always translate into your company's ROI. So you could be getting tons of traffic, but they could be just reading your blog or content and leaving immediately. So that's why we always recommend measuring your organic traffic alongside those key performance indicators. So depending on your industry or your website, those KPIs can vary widely, but some of the most common ones we see are engagement. So it could be anything from PDF engagement or video engagement to PDF downloads, to leads. That's one of our more common ones, especially within the B2B industry, and that would be anytime someone fills out a form within your website. For the healthcare industry, a really popular one would be phone calls. So making sure you have the proper tracking set up so you can attribute not only the calls coming through, but as well as the quality coming through. And with the right systems in place, filling in that ROI aspect. And then lastly, if you're a B2C or e-commerce website, you can track the revenue or online purchases coming through organic traffic. So at the very bottom is, of course, the chart. So the bar graphs are organic visits over time, and the line graph is organic revenue. So you can see, although it's not a direct up one-to-one consistently, the trend across both is that as our organic traffic is increasing, we're seeing that organic revenue rise alongside it. So similar to the last slide, these two definitely go hand in hand, is we recommend measuring your trajectory versus your immediate impact. So if you think of paid search, it's like a faucet. You can turn it on, you're going to see immediate results. You turn it off, and those results are going to go away. And SEO is pretty much the complete opposite of that. It's a slow compounding process. You know, A affects B, and A and B affect C, and so on and so forth. So month over month, things may seem slow or unchanging, but tracking from start of implementation until now, or until a specific date, gives you a better view of how everything's working together for a gradual change. And you can see increases, and then if you don't, you can reset and kind of say, this isn't working, we need to change our direction. So this is a chart of actual one of our clients, and if you went back and looked at Q1 2015 versus Q2 for 2015, it would actually look like they're on a downward slope, like nothing we're doing is working. But if you then look at Q1 2015 to Q1 2017, you can see that while the initial traffic bar doesn't necessarily look like it's going up until further on in the year, you can measure with that trajectory that everything is moving in that positive direction. And if you continue to the SEO work, you're going to see things continue to compound and move in the right direction. Next is a big one for content. So obviously content when it comes to SEO at this point is very, very important. It provides context and relevancy for Google when it's indexed and crawled, which therefore can help you show up on a higher page on Google. So a big thing here is, and we're trying to move this direction with a lot of our clients, is consider to start writing your content with the topic cluster method, and this is courtesy of HubSpot. Basically, a single pillar page acts as the main hub of content for an overarching topic, and then multiple content pages that are related to that pillar link back to it. So this linking from the more specific pages to that broader pages signals to search engines that the pillar page is authority on the topic. And then over time, as that page starts to rank higher and higher for the topic it covered, the clusters, the topic clusters linked to it also start ranking better. It's easier for Google or Bing to find related content this way. And overall, it's a better way of organizing your site's content pages using a cleaner and more deliberate site architecture.
This next tactic is addressing how you know what types of organic searches are driving traffic to your site if you're no longer focusing primarily on those keyword rankings. So what we would suggest is to go ahead and look at your search analytics in place of Google, or in place of keyword rankings. And there's two places that we specifically suggest looking at. And the first place is Google Analytics. Unfortunately, if you were to go directly into Google Analytics and look at the organic keyword referrals, a lot of that data is going to be hidden, probably upwards of 90%. That's in order to protect user privacy. But just because you don't have the exact answer there doesn't mean you can't infer some insights from trends that you're seeing. And what we would do there is suggest looking at your top organic landing pages. So set it to organic traffic only and make sure you're not just looking at pages viewed, but landing pages. There you'll be able to identify what are the most important landing page topics or themes that are driving traffic to your site. And in order to optimize the traffic coming through, there we would suggest going ahead and looking at wherever your top organic landing page is, adding a call to action to improve the conversion rate there. That'll help improve your organic revenue or organic ROI. As well as take a look at which organic landing pages are not in the top results, but you do believe are very important for your organization. That's where you can kind of build a gap analysis, and it'll highlight and identify which pages are not performing well organically, and you can go ahead and put together a plan on how to improve those pages so they push up as well. Secondly, we would recommend setting up a Google Search Console account and then linking it to your Google Analytics account. A screenshot of some of the analytics that comes out of Google Search Console is on the right. What it does is it actually pulls more data. Some of that not set or not available data that you're looking at in Google Analytics actually appears here. So you can see the actual search queries that people are searching for and your site is appearing for. And one of the great parts about this is you can actually see some of those searches that you're appearing for and not even being clicked on. So you can see which areas you're showing up for and which areas you have a good click-through rate. So that can definitely help you identify which pages that you need to, and which content pieces you need to optimize to improve the click-through rate, or perhaps you're even appearing in a position that's too far or not within the first page. So definitely showing you where you're doing well as far as click-through rate and where you have room for improvement. Next, we're going to address some of the pushback around link building. So what we would challenge you to do here is, again, think beyond the norm. And when you think of link building, don't just think of it as one link pointing back to your site. Instead, recognize that you're reaching a new and expanded audience and hopefully generating some new referral traffic. So for suggestions there, a lot of the niche sites we can't provide because it will vary industry to industry or organization to organization. But instead, think of some of the associations that you belong to or trade shows that you attend. And those are great places to start and see how you can get involved. More often than not, they're very happy to receive content or feedback from the thought leaders within your company. Secondly, take a look at some non-traditional link building websites. So these might not necessarily provide an exact follow link. A lot of these are more no follow, but they're different areas where people could be searching within that platform, or also just reaching a completely different new audience. So if you can get something to go viral within LinkedIn Pulse or Reddit and Medium, perhaps someone else is going to see that article and then reference it in another area. So think of it as kind of like the launching point in order to begin that link building process further. And the second half of this is thinking beyond the norm again, would be to think of SEO as not just optimizations for Google alone. So again, we're seeing that pie chart on the right that we saw earlier. So apply the optimizations for not only your content and not just your written content, but also your video and image content. See how you can rank in secondary search markets like Bing and Yahoo. Also, if you're an e-commerce store, how can you champion and beat out the competition in places like Amazon or Alibaba? And also think of new mediums like Google Images and YouTube, where you can really win results where the competition might not be as high. So just when you're thinking of link building, think outside the box and do not limit yourself to just the idea that it's one followed link.
Lastly, this is an action item you can take to address showing up on the first page of Google but not seeing any relevant traffic. And that's taking advantage of these new SERP features that are showing up in Google. So the way you can do this is by using schema markup. And what that is code that you put on your website to help the search engines return more information or more informative results for users. And it actually tells the search engine what the data means, which again, more context for Google, which is one of the big stories coming out of this webinar. The more content or the more context you can create for a search engine, the better, because all they want to do is provide the best return on investment for a searcher. So context allows them to do that. Using schema markup or structured data can signify, you can use it to signify a lot of things, like you're a local business, your hours of business, where you do business, all that kind of stuff. You can signify that the little icon on the bottom of your web page is actually a link to Facebook and get it to show up in your knowledge panel, which is, you can see in the screenshot where that red arrow is pointed to social profiles. Using schema markup can help you get all of your profiles showing there. You can also use schema markup to potentially make your site or your page more attractive to Google, just in general. Everything you see in the screenshots here on the left-hand side with a red arrow was set up or created with schema markup. And look at all the additional information Marketo has on that SERP page. And then secondly, over on the right, using schema markup to note that you're a local business helps you show up in those local map listings, which I know every business would probably love to show up in.
Lastly, we promised you a bonus slide, and so here it is. Google recently, about 2 weeks ago, produced a new social feature called Google Posts. So we all know that Google's attempt at social media, which would be Google Plus, was a pretty much big flop. So this is their newest attempt at helping to make search a little bit more social, and we think this is going to be a winner that sticks around. So the really awesome thing about this is we know that Facebook and Twitter and some of the other networks are downsizing the organic reach that your pages have and are making it more pay to play. So Google is now providing, Google is now increasing that availability and providing organic reach. So the different types of posts that you can push out are events, promotions, articles, or different product arrivals or features. And so we screenshot the example below. It's circled in blue and then zoomed up on the right. In this example, we highlighted the webinar that you're now currently attending. And it allows you to pick about 30 characters in your post copy, upload a custom image, and then if you choose to select a button, you can go ahead and add a link with a few different call to actions like sign up or learn more, depending on the type of post that you are making. So in order to use this and use this functionality, you have to log into your Google My Business account. There, your business must be confirmed and verified through Google. So if it's not already, that's definitely something that you'd want to do so that you can help control the features that are showing up. But once you get that set up and verified, really you can start posting pretty much immediately. One additional note is that these posts do expire every 7 days, so they're not going to live forever, but I mean, really it's a great way to feature some new releases within your organization or new thought leadership that you want to promote right on the front page to people searching for your company or brand.
Yeah, and another thing to note for Google, the post is you can actually have more than one post up. It'll turn into a carousel there, so you'll get arrows that a user can scroll through. But only the first 2.5 show up until someone starts scrolling. So with that being said, that we're coming to the close here. We have a few key takeaways that we want to impart on you before we get to questions. So number one, don't put all your eggs in the keyword ranking basket. So keyword rankings are too hard and inaccurate to measure. If you think back to the SERP pages we showed you, everybody's SERP page looks different. So if I Google something at home versus something in the office, I'm going to see something different. Keyword ranking should probably be used as a directional tool, saying, you know, we're headed in the right direction on X, Y, and Z. Let's write some more content around it and give Google more context. Secondly, SERPs are constantly changing. They change their algorithms almost daily. Sometimes we notice these updates, sometimes we don't. But Google, Bing, Yahoo, they are all continuously updating their algorithms, which means the SERP is going to be constantly changing. We're never going to be able to keep up with them at the speed they make changes, but we have to be willing and ready to adapt with them. So as new features like Google Posts or the structured data starts showing up in the SERPs, we need to adapt and make sure that our websites can show up in those places as well.
And additionally, when you go back to see how you can implement some of these takeaways, think of other ways to quote-unquote rank in Google, figure out how you can think outside the box and take advantage of the search engine results page features that Google is now promoting and showing on a lot more of the results. And lastly, don't limit your organic growth tactics to focusing just on Google. There are hundreds of other sites and platforms that can directly affect your results. So figure out what can work best for your organization and start getting at it. And last but not least, we do have a bit.ly link to our takeaway. We gave a quick preview of it in an earlier slide, but if you type that in, it'll give you a PDF download that you can view right within your browser. So we'll leave this up for a few minutes so you have a chance to write that down.
And we'll also be sending it in the email along with our slides and the recorded webinar.
Well, thanks, Caitlin and Michelle. It looks like a few questions got submitted throughout the webinar, so I guess we'll take this time to ask those and get your answers on them. So the first question, I think we covered this throughout the webinar, but it might be helpful to summarize it again here at the end. But can you explain what are SERP elements and maybe some examples of them?
Yeah, so the SERP elements are the kind of the new features that you're seeing on that search engine results page. So think of it like if you search chocolate chip recipe, chocolate chip cookie recipe, the first thing that you're going to see on the search engine result page maybe might be an ad, but also is going to be actually an answer box where the recipe is laid out right in front of you for you instead of having to click into a website, scroll down, and see the recipe. Google's pulling out the relevant information and then plopping it into a box at the top of that results page for you to pull directly from. So that's just one SERP feature. Again, in our takeaway, I think we go through 7 of them. So you can drill a little deeper on there. But yeah, so the answer box, the knowledge graph panel on the right-hand side of the results page, where all of your business information is listed, or you can oftentimes see like information about a movie, definitions, Wikipedia information, as well as getting a search bar put within your results listing. All of those things are SERP features, and they're continually adding more. But again, in the takeaway, we drill down into 7 of them, 7 of the most common ones, and how you can affect those.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. Looks like we have another question here. So I wanted to get started with schema markup for my website. Where should I start? And then are there only certain content types that work with schema?
So Google actually has a schema markup helper. So you can go in, and if you just Google schema markup, it'll take you to the page, and you can start clicking around, and it'll show you the places you can click within your specific web page. And as you're clicking it, Google will help you to note what it is, and then it'll spit out the HTML for you at the end that you can go ahead and give to your front end or dev person to get added to your website.
Yeah, it's really a great tool if you're not familiar with code or not a code writer. It allows you to highlight what your business hours, highlight your business name, highlight your address, and then through that it populates and spits out the code that you can work with a developer to go ahead and get added on your site. Yeah. If you are familiar with code, schema.org is where all the schemas are listed, and you can go through, determine what's relevant on your site. And once you get that put together, either within like a notebook or whatever system you're using, you can test it before you put it on your site. And again, Google provides a structured data tester where you can go ahead and see whether it's going to pull through or not. Mm-hmm. And just to note, we're saying Google a lot, but schema is across all of the search networks. They've worked together to come up with that language. So it'll work on Yahoo, Bing, and any of the other ones as well. Mm-hmm.
Thanks. So another question here, what do you recommend tracking in place of keyword ranking?
I think that goes back to the slide that we covered earlier. So definitely make sure that you're tracking your KPIs or your conversion metrics, and make sure you're able to track them in a way that you can distinguish what type of traffic is driving those conversions. So you know your organic search is driving that phone call, or your direct traffic is driving that phone call. And even further than that, I would suggest digging into Google Search Console and getting familiar. Another great thing to measure there would be taking a look at the impression count for where your site's appearing over time. So seeing whether or not you're appearing more or less month to month. So something that is a little bit more manual to keep track of. And you will have to manually keep track of it because I believe the data is removed every 60 or 90 days. But it really can provide you some deeper insights beyond just that traffic metric.
Gotcha. So it sounds like a lot of things to start tracking here. Should we stop tracking keywords altogether?
I wouldn't say stop completely. I think it's going back to that key takeaway. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. Use them as a directional tool because they're helpful and they provide you direction like this content's probably working and here's where we have some room to work. Mm-hmm.
Great. What are your guys' favorite SEO tools?
I know In-house, we are a big fan of Moz and love using that. They have a lot of tools within the platform itself, so great for keyword research, great for link research. So it provides a lot of actionable data that we can track over time. For actual keyword rankings, we love using a tool called SERP. And we love this because it allows us to track not only at the national level, but also dig into locales or specific cities or regions or locations. So that way we're able to distinguish the personalization results there. Even further, SERP also does pull in some keyword rankings from some of those SERP elements. So still not pulling in all of them, but they are able to recognize when there's a listing there for something within the local max results. So give it at least pulling in a little bit more data beyond that, those traditional 10 blue links.
Yeah, and we also like to use SpyFu, so we can actually see organically how we stack up against our competitors with SpyFu, which is always great.
Great. And then our last question here. So you mentioned the Google Posts platform and the new feature there. What results have you seen just immediately from that?
I mean, really at this point, since it's only been out of beta and available to everyone for about 2 weeks now, we don't have a lot of results to report on. So I would like to say that we're still kind of pulling in information to make it kind of a final conclusion there. But where we have posted and started pushing those out, to date, mostly we've seen it be a little bit more of an awareness impression impact. So getting a lot of views, getting in front of people, but we haven't seen a large impact as far as visitors or clicks coming through. I think part of this reason might also be because it is such a new feature and people aren't used to or recognizing that it's there, kind of just a little bit different from what they're used to seeing. So yeah, I think the verdict is largely still out there, but we're excited to continue using it.
Yeah, we really like it. When we got our webinar up there, there were cheers in the office. It was really cool. We're really excited to see Google go social in a new direction.
Great. Well, thanks, Caitlin and Michelle. You've been very helpful in explaining SEO today. So just a few things to wrap up. If you guys were having trouble with that bit.ly link, make sure the R is capitalized when you're doing that, and we'll correct that and send it through in the follow-up email. So to follow up, we'll be sending a recording of the webinar and then the link to that piece there, and answers to some of the questions that we covered here today. So thanks again for joining, and happy marketing.
Bye.